The restaurant was one of those places where soft lighting hid a multitude of sins: overpriced food, pretentious menus, and tonight, the cruelty of three men who thought themselves clever. The golden glow from the crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across white tablecloths, and quiet conversations hummed beneath the gentle clink of wine glasses. At a table near the back, Marcus Chen sat with two of his work colleagues, Ryan and Brada, both grinning like they just pulled off the prank of the century. "I can't believe he actually showed up," Ryan whispered, leaning forward with poorly concealed amusement. "Did you see his face when he walked in?" Brad stifled a laugh. "This is going to be epic. Wait until he realizes we set him up with a shut up. Here he comes," Marcus hissed, though his own expression was troubled. Across the restaurant, 36-year-old James Porter stood near the entrance, scanning the room with the nervous energy of a man who hadn't been on a date in years. He wore a simple white polo shirt and dark jeans, and nothing fancy, but neat and respectful. His dark hair was freshly cut, and there was something genuinely kind about his face, something open and hopeful that made Marcus's stomach twist with unexpected guilt. James was a single father to an 8-year-old daughter named Sophie. His wife had died from complications during childbirth, and he'd spent the last 8 years devoted entirely to his daughter, working as a high school history teacher, coaching her soccer team, attending every recital and parent-teacher conference. He'd only agreed to this blind date because Ryan, a fellow teacher, had insisted it was time to get back out there. "She's perfect for you," Ryan had said. "Sweet, funny, smart, you'll love her." What Ryan hadn't mentioned, what he deliberately hid, was that the woman he'd set James up with, his cousin Emma, was overweight, significantly so. And Ryan, along with Brad and Marcus, had positioned themselves at a nearby table specifically to watch James's reaction, to see if he'd go through with the date or make an excuse and leave. It was meant to be funny, a joke, entertainment for a boring Thursday evening. But as James spotted his date and walked toward her table, something unexpected happened. Emma Hayes sat alone near the window, wearing a beige dress that she'd carefully selected after an hour of trying on different outfits and hating how she looked in all of them. At 33, she'd learned to develop a thick skin about her weight, but it never fully protected her from the world's judgment. She'd been shocked when her cousin Ryan called to set her up with some Ryan, who usually acted embarrassed by her at family gatherings, who'd made more than his share of cruel comments over the years. She'd almost said number, but some small, stubborn part of her had hoped that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Now, watching James approach, she steeled herself for the familiar sequence, the moment of recognition, the flash of disappointment, the polite excuse that would send him back out the door within 5 minutes. But James didn't follow the script. He reached her table, and yes, there was a moment where he took in her appearance, where his expression shifted slightly. But then he smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes, and extended his hand. "Emma, I'm James. It's really nice to meet you." Emma shook his hand, searching his face for signs of disgust or pity. She found neither, just friendliness, real, uncomplicated friendliness. "Hi," she managed. "Thank you for coming." James sat down across from her, and if he was bothered by anything about her appearance, he gave no indication. Instead, he said, "I have to admit, I'm pretty nervous. I haven't been on a date in 8 years. My daughter gave me a whole pep talk before I left, complete with advice on what to say and what not to say. Most of it involved not talking too much about historical battles, which is apparently boring." Emma felt a small smile tug her lips. "You have a daughter?" "Sophie. She's 8. Going on 30. Smartest person I know." James's face lit up when he talked about her. "She's with my sister tonight, probably trying to stay up past her bedtime watching movies she's technically too young for." At the table across the room, Ryan's grin faltered. "He's actually talking to her, like, really talking." "Give it time," Brad said. "He's just being polite. He'll make an excuse soon." But James didn't make an excuse. Over the next hour, he and Emma talked easily about books, about teaching. Emma worked as a librarian at a middle school, about their families and their favorite movies. James asked thoughtful questions and listened to her answers with genuine interest. When Emma made a joke about a particularly difficult patron at her library, James laughed, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle people usually offered her. Emma found herself relaxing, forgetting to monitor every word, every gesture. James had a way of making her feel interesting rather than awkward, valued rather than tolerated. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said as their entrees arrived. "Why did you agree to this blind date? Your cousin said you haven't dated since your wife died." James was quiet for a moment, his expression growing thoughtful. "Sophie asked me something a few weeks ago. She wanted to know if I was lonely, and I realized I'd been so focused on being her dad that I'd forgotten I was still a person with other needs too. Ryan seemed convinced it'd be a good match, so I thought, why not take a chance?" "And?" Emma asked, her heart beating faster. "Was he right?" James met her eyes directly. "I think he might have been. You're easy to talk to, Emma, and you have this way of seeing the world that's both practical and hopeful at the same time. That's rare." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. No one had spoken to her like this in years. Like she was desirable, interesting, worth knowing. At the nearby table, Marcus couldn't stay quiet any longer. "This isn't funny anymore. We should tell them." "Tell them what?" Ryan snapped, his amusement souring into something uglier. "That we set them up as a joke? That'll just hurt Emma even more." "But he likes her," Marcus insisted. "Really likes her. You can see it, and she likes him. This isn't what we thought it would be." Brad shrugged uncomfortably. "So what? We just let it play out? He'll figure it out eventually." "Figure what out?" Marcus demanded. "That she's fat." "I think he's noticed, Ryan. He just doesn't care." Ryan's face hardened. "Everyone cares. He's just being nice because he feels sorry for her." But even as Ryan said it, watching James and Emma laugh together, seeing the way James leaned forward when Emma spoke, the way his attention never wavered from her face, it was clear that pity had nothing to do with what was happening at that table. The dinner continued. Dessert was ordered and shared out. Emma had initially declined, self-conscious about eating sweets in front of a date, but James had insisted, saying the tiramisu was meant to be shared. As they ate, James told her about Sophie's latest school project, about teaching teenagers who thought history was boring until you showed them how it connected to their lives. Emma told him about the reading program she'd started at her library, about working with kids who struggled with literacy, about the joy of watching a reluctant reader finally find a book that spoke to them. "You really love what you do," James observed. "I do." "Do you?" "Most days," James said with a smile. "Though grading essays at midnight isn't my favorite part. Sophie says I mutter to myself about grammar while I'm working." Emma laughed. "My cat judges me when I talk to books." "You talk to books?" "Doesn't everyone?" "Not everyone," James said, "but the best people do." As the evening wound down, James walked Emma to her car. The parking lot was quiet, lit by amber streetlights, and Emma felt the familiar dread building. This was usually when the truth came out, when politeness gave way to reality. "Ma," James said, and she braced herself. "I had a really wonderful time tonight. I'd like to see you again, if you're interested." Emma stared at him. "You would?" "Very much." James looked genuinely confused by her surprise. "Why wouldn't I be?" Emma took a breath. Because look at me, James. I'm not what guys usually want. I'm not thin or conventionally attractive. People see me and they make judgments. So if you're just being nice, if this is some kind of pity thing, please just tell me now. I'd rather know." James's expression shifted to something deeper and not pity, but understanding mixed with anger at whoever had made her feel this way. "First of all," he said gently, "you are attractive. You have a beautiful smile, kind eyes, and you light up when you talk about things you're passionate about. That's what I see. Second, I'm not here out of pity. I'm here because I enjoyed talking to you more than I've enjoyed talking to anyone in years. And third, if you think I haven't noticed your weight, you're wrong. I have. I just don't care, because it's the least interesting thing about you." Emma felt tears spill down her cheeks. "People don't usually say things like that to me." "Then people are idiots," James said firmly. He pulled out his phone. "Can I have your number? I'd like to take you to dinner again. Maybe somewhere less fancy where we can actually relax." Emma gave him her number, and as she drove home, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe she'd found someone who saw her or really saw her and liked what he saw. Behind them in the parking lot, Marcus caught up to Ryan and Brad as they headed to their car. "We need to tell him," Marcus said. "Tell him what?" Ryan snapped. "That we thought it would be funny to set him up with my fat cousin." "How does that help anyone?" "It helps him know what kind of people he's working with," Marcus shot back. "Did you see his face in there? He genuinely likes her, Ryan, and she clearly likes him." "What happens when they figure out we set this up as a joke? That we were sitting there watching them like it was entertainment?" Brad shifted uncomfortably. "Marcus has a point. This got out of hand." "It's not our problem," Ryan insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Over the following weeks, James and Emma dated properly. They went to movies, to museums, to the park where Sophie played soccer. James introduced Emma to his daughter, and Sophie took to her immediately, delighted by Emma's knowledge of children's books and her willingness to play elaborate imagination games. Emma, who'd grown up feeling invisible or mocked, found herself part of something she'd stopped believing existed for her, a real relationship with someone who valued her for who she was. 2 months into their relationship, James took Emma to dinner at the same restaurant where they'd met. "I wanted to come back here," he said as they sat down, "because this is where I met someone who changed my life. I know it's fast, and I know we're still figuring this out, but Emma, I need you to know something. I'm falling in love with you. Not despite anything, not overlooking anything, just you, exactly as you are. You've made me remember what it feels like to connect with someone, to look forward to tomorrow, to imagine a future that includes more than just me and Sophie." Emma was crying now, happy tears that she didn't bother to hide. "I love you too. I was so sure you'd figure out you could do better, that you'd wake up one day and realize." "Stop," James interrupted gently. "There is no better. There's just you, and you're perfect for me." That's when Ryan appeared at their table. He looked older somehow, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. Marcus stood behind him, expression grim. "James," Ryan said, "can I talk to you for a minute?" James looked up, surprised. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" "I need to tell you something," Ryan said, his voice strained. "About how Emma and you, how it started." Emma's stomach dropped. She looked at her cousin with growing dread. "Ryan, what did you do?" And then Ryan told them everything, about the setup, about the table where he and Brad and Marcus had sat watching their first date like it was a reality show, about how it had been meant as a joke, to see if James would go through with dating Emma or if he'd make an excuse and leave. "I was an ass," Ryan said, and he was crying now too. "I thought it would be funny. I thought you'd be polite for a few minutes then bold. I never expected it." He looked at Emma. "I never expected him to actually see you the way I should have been seeing you all along. As someone worth knowing, someone valuable. And watching the two of you together these past months, watching how happy you are, it's made me realize what a terrible person I've been to you, Emma, all your life. I'm so sorry." The silence that followed was deafening. Emma sat frozen, humiliation washing over her in waves. It had all been a joke. The best thing that had happened to her in years had started as entertainment for cruel men who thought her weight made her less than human. But James's reaction wasn't what anyone expected. He stood up slowly, facing Ryan with an expression of cold fury. "You set this up to mock her? To mock us, James? James's voice was quiet but sharp as broken glass. "You don't get to explain. You took someone kinda indecent and treated her like a punchline. You thought her weight made her unworthy of basic human respect, of love, of happiness. And you thought watching me react to her would be entertaining." Ryan couldn't meet his eyes. "But here's what you didn't count on," James continued. "You didn't count on Emma being exactly the kind of person I needed in my life. Smart, compassionate, genuine. You didn't count on me having enough emotional intelligence to see past the superficial bullshit that you clearly value so much. And you didn't count on the fact that your joke would lead to me finding the best relationship I've had since my wife died. He turned to Emma, taking her hand. "I'm not with you despite your weight. I'm not with you because I'm some kind of saint who can overlook it. I'm with you because you're funny and kind and you make Sophie laugh and you understand why history matters and you talk to books. Your weight is just a fact about you, like my height or your eye color. It's not who you are, and anyone who can't see that isn't worth our time." Emma was sobbing now, but also smiling. "You mean that?" "Every word." James looked back at Ryan. "Your joke was cruel and small-minded, but it gave me Emma. So I'll thank you for that and nothing else. Now please leave us alone." Ryan left, shamefaced and silent. Marcus stopped to apologize to Emma, genuinely remorseful, before following. Later that evening, as James drove Emma home, she said, "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you'd been the person they thought you were. If you'd looked at me and left." "But I didn't," James said simply, "because that's not who I am. My wife taught me something before she died. She said that people reveal their character in how they treat those the world tells them don't matter. She said that kindness isn't about being nice to people who can do something for you, and it's about treating everyone with dignity, regardless of what they look like or what they can offer you." She sounds like she was wonderful. She was, and I think she'd really like you. 6 months later, James proposed to Emma in front of Sophie and Emma's parents. The ring was modest but beautiful, and Emma said yes through tears of joy. At their wedding a year later, Emma's vows included these words: "You saw me when the world looked past me. You valued me when others saw me as a joke. You taught me that I was worthy of love not because I changed, but because I was always worthy and just needed someone with the wisdom to recognize it. You took what was meant to be cruel and turned it into something beautiful. That's who you are, James. Someone who sees the best in people, who chooses kindness over judgment, who measures worth by character instead of appearance." James's vows answered, "You taught me that moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past. That opening my heart again wasn't betraying my wife's memory but honoring the love she taught me to give. You showed Sophie what a loving partner looks like, what real strength is. And you reminded me that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected places, even from moments that started with someone else's cruelty but bloomed into grace because we chose to see each other clearly." Ryan attended the wedding at Emma's invitation. He'd spent the past year in therapy, confronting his own prejudices and cruelty. He gave a toast that was brief but sincere. "I tried to make Emma the butt of a joke. Instead, she and James taught me what real character looks like. I'm grateful they found each other, and I'm sorry it took their love to teach me basic human decency." Years later, when people asked James and Emma how they met, they told the truth, all of it: the setup, the cruelty, the joke that backfired because love is more powerful than mockery. "People think the story is about me overlooking Emma's weight," James would say, "but that's not it at all. The story is about recognizing that a person's worth has nothing to do with how they look. It's about choosing substance over surface, character over convention." Emma didn't need me to save her or overlook anything. She just needed someone who could see clearly, and I'm grateful every day that I could. Emma would add, "And I learned that my weight doesn't determine my value. It never did. I just needed to find someone who already knew that, who didn't need to be convinced or persuaded. Someone who saw me, all of me, and chose to stay." Their story became one they shared at schools, at events promoting body positivity and anti-bullying campaigns, not as a fairy tale about a man rescuing a woman, but as a testament to what happens when we judge people by their character instead of their appearance. And Sophie, growing up watching her father and Emma build a life together, learned something crucial: that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone real, someone kind, someone who sees you clearly and chooses you anyway. Sometimes, James reflected, the worst intentions can lead to the best outcomes, not because cruelty is redeemed, but because love is more powerful than hate, and character triumphs over superficiality when given the chance. Ryan's joke hadn't worked because he'd fundamentally misunderstood what matters to good people. He'd assumed everyone shared his shallow values, his cruel humor. He'd been wrong, and in being wrong, he'd accidentally brought together two people who proved that the best connections are built on really seeing each other's hearts. Emma's weight hadn't mattered to James. Her kindness, intelligence, humor, and strength had. And that, James taught Sophie, was how you measured a person's worth. Not by the scale, but by the size of their heart.